So let's begin with some meditation and try to set a good motivation for the class. So relax your body and mind. Settle your attention on the breathing. And then bring your attention further within, away from the senses. Extreme form of restraining the senses, actually taking the consciousnesses away from them. Try to bring to your heart if you can, which is a natural place for the winds, the consciousnesses to abide, say at the time of sleep or in concentration. And just recognizing everything, even if there's a residue of the sense consciousnesses appearing to your consciousness, everything is being noted by your mental consciousness, conceptually, via mental image, and you don't have to pay attention to those mental images. As you disregard also the sense input, it doesn't support the errors. The consciousness is abiding at the faculties, the sense faculties, the organs, and the ears will start to abide more, withdraw toward the heart. Just try to recall the clear light nature, or for the first time, or again analyze for the first time, sense it, the space between the thoughts, the nature of the mind that allows the thoughts to come and go. let go again and again of whatever appears to your consciousness, as though turning your back on it, refocusing on the subjective mind, the nature of the mind. Although this spaciousness, this clear light, is not the ultimate nature of the mind, it can give a hint to that. Within this very quiet state of mind now, try to notice the sense of your self-identity. Not intellectually created one, but the most subtle, innate form of the I, as we've stopped conceptualizing mind to some degree. Just the sense of the I that thinks, I am meditating, or I'm experiencing this. This is called identifying the object of negation. A sense of I that seems real and as though set up by itself, set up from its own side, existing without the need to merely designate it. And then recall, if such an I existed as this, naturally existent, truly existent, it would have to be truly one with the aggregates or truly other than, different from the aggregates. That's something that we have to spend some time on in other meditation sessions, but maybe you've ascertained that already. If a truly existent I exists, if it were to exist, it would have to be truly, and the word truly is important here, one with the aggregates or truly different than the aggregates. If it were truly, not just imputedly one with the aggregates, it would have to be identical in all ways. So there would have to be either many selves, many I's, as there are many aggregates, or else the I would have to be just a partless aggregate. When you see the impossibility of that, investigate the other alternative. If it were to be truly other than the aggregates, seems like a reasonable proposition at first. But if it were truly other, different than the aggregates, it would have to have an independent existence, unrelated to the aggregates, truly other, in no way sharing anything with them. So the experiences of our aggregates would not be experienced by the I. When the tongue tasted, we wouldn't say, I taste. when the impossibility of that alternative arises, again you think, if the I were to truly exist, it would have to be either truly one with the aggregates or truly different from the aggregates. It's not truly one with the aggregates, and the faults before. There would have to be many I's or one aggregate. It's not truly different than the aggregates. It would have no relationship with them whatsoever. Therefore, a truly existent I is non-existent. The I is not truly existent. So when that wisdom, understanding arises, the ignorance grasping, apprehending, grasping to this sense of I within your mental consciousness meets its antidote. If the antidote is strong enough, certain enough, the grasping diminishes and is unmanifest while we're recognizing the certainty of that. The I that seems to be existing from its own side does not exist this way at all. See if you can just experience that vacuity, the mere spaciousness of that experience, a non-affirming negation, not affirming anything in its place. The I is not truly existent. If your mind becomes unfocused, again you have to go back to your reasoning. Again, try to identify the object of negation, see how the mind is grasping to it. Ignorance, apprehending and believing in that. And then recognize the reasoning that overcomes that ignorance. If the I were to be truly one, it would have to be truly existent, it would have to be truly one with the aggregates or truly other. It is neither, therefore it is not truly existent. Like a dream that seems so real in the dream is devoid of reality. Like a mirage that seems like real water is devoid of water. Like an optical illusion, magician's illusion. Or the reflection of a lake, reflection of the moon in a lake, as though it really there, but is empty of the reality that our mind attributes to it. The same way the I is empty. And then recalling as Avalokiteshvara explained to Shariputra, not only the I is empty of true existence, also the aggregates upon which it is based, the body that seems to be appearing to your mind as a basis to impute the I, that too, appearing to your mind as truly existent, but is devoid of that existence. Using the same reasoning, if the body that appears as this one conceptual entity, the body, if it were to truly exist, it would have to be truly one with the parts, the limbs, the head, the arms, the torso, the legs, the subparts, or it would have to be truly different than them. Like the self, that body, the form, aggregate, is not truly existent. It's like an illusion. Also the feelings that we cherish so much, pleasant feeling, seems to be not just the pleasant, the unpleasant, the neutral, but the ones that we cherish, the pleasant feelings that we strive after so much. They're actually empty of true existence. They appear, but they lack the reality that our mind imbues them with, and that instigates us to try to get those feelings, to reproduce those feelings by chasing after contaminated causes of them. If feelings really existed as they appear to the mind, take a pleasant feeling, something that you enjoy. If it existed as the mind conceives as true, it would have to be truly one with its parts, in this case, the instance of feeling. Even the continuity of just that pleasant feeling would have to be either one with that or different, inherently different than that. As the moments of the feeling have different intensity and are different from one another, there would have to be either many feelings or one moment of feeling. If the feeling was inherently different than its parts, it would have no relationship with them whatsoever. Like the self, like the body, feeling is just imputedly existent. Just a name we give to a succession of moments, parts. It's empty of existing from its own side as it appears to the mind. See if you can let go of your apprehension of feeling as really existing. Also unpleasant feelings that we might try to avoid empty of true existence. When they occur, rather than letting the mind develop repulsion and some strategy to avoid that feeling, use it instead as an opportunity to meditate on the emptiness of the feeling. What is it that we're trying to avoid? feeling is not truly existent. It's just a concept, existing conventionally as a concept, as a name imputed to this succession of parts, none of which has any true existence. Likewise, discriminations, all the other mental factors, anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, depression, even ignorance itself that befuddles us is not truly existent. It's just a name, a concept that we associate with this particular dependent arising, which only exists as an imputation. It doesn't exist from its own side. Otherwise it wouldn't be able to change. Consciousness itself is empty. Even emptiness, although it seems to be an ultimate, it too is just a name that we impute to this dependent arising. Letting go even of the sense of a real emptiness that obliterates all the other phenomena, that too is empty. Think how profound this wisdom is, how creative it is, the womb from which all the spiritual aspirants arise, the mother of all the Buddhas. The Buddhas of the past, the present, the future, all arise from this understanding, letting go of their attachment, their anger and so forth, their depression, low self-esteem. Think for the welfare of sentient beings, I am going to realize this emptiness. I'm going to develop this wisdom, overcome my faults, however long it takes, to be a real friend of sentient beings, to achieve, like the bodhisattvas of sharp intellect, to achieve bodhicitta very quickly through exchanging self and others based on this realization of emptiness. To achieve Buddhahood for their benefit. So for that purpose, I'm going to participate in the class tonight and begin by praising the Mother, the wisdom gone beyond. Not the emptiness itself, but the subjective mind, and then by recalling the actual Heart Sutra itself. Ma samje me sherab parujin ma ke mingak nam ke ngo ni so rang rig yeshe chul yul chen tu sum galway yu Tadyata Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Svaha. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Ultra's mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also, at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and also no mental element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattva dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tadyata Gate Gate Para Samgati Bodhi Svaha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. So, did you understand? Was it Kelly? Corey. Did you understand anything? Okay, that's not sure. Okay, yeah, it's kind of kind of vague at first, right? This is a tough class to dip your toe into, just like these mighty souls have been studying for more than a year now. Let's study this, so don't worry. So I want to ask, who was it that asked? Oh, I think Frank asked, or was it Frank? Did you ask one time? Okay, but how do you meditate on emptiness? Didn't you say that? That's what I think you should have. Either you or Mark. I can't remember. Was it Mark? Did you ask that? You might have asked it. Yeah. You were seated in Land of Medicine Buddha Gampa, and by the power. So Frank asked. So, do you guys have an idea now how to meditate on emptiness? At least one particular method? Is it just like is it say emptiness? Or just have a blank mind? That's not the meaning, right? The mother, the wisdom gone beyond, is an antidote to our ignorance. In fact, we can transform that ignorance into the mother, realizing emptiness. It's not like a different entity whatsoever. It's in fact, usually, remember when we talked about mind and mental factors, we mentioned that ignorance, according to the great scholars and the great meditators, they said ignorance was kind of a misdirected wisdom. So that right now it's apprehending the I and believing it. We have to develop the wisdom that acts as an antidote to that and transform it into an actual understanding while it's perceiving the I, that the I is actually empty. There are many other reasons. The reason that we're using here, that Venerable Rinpoche mentioned in the course that on the concentration of wisdom chapters of the Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand, is called the 4-point analysis, right? Not all reasonings are the same. That's one particular reasoning. All of the reasonings will have to more or less have a certain kind of similarity. First, you have to recognize the object of negation, that which is eventually to be negated. And unless that's explained to you, say through the scriptures, through hearing the teachings, it's not something you know in naturally what you're supposed to meditate on. You might think you're supposed to meditate on something else. You've got to find the right object, first of all, that which appears to be truly existent to your mind. So it's not, for my meager experience, it's not just like a doctrine. It's not just like, what's another word people use? A dogma or theory or something. It's something you can actually see in your own mind. The I does appear to have this kind of existence. And in your everyday life, if you notice from, moment by moment, especially when the mind is chaotic, when you're ready to scream and cry and yell, that I seems to be very apparent, very real, very true. And why does it appear to be true? Because the mind is apprehending it that way. It's not that it has a real existence that forces you to assent to it. Your mind sees that, just like it sees a mirage or an illusion. These various examples that the Buddha gave that could be used as the example in the different kinds of logical reasonings. You know what some of them are? What did we talk about? Like an illusion, like what else? Like a dream, like a reflection, like a mirage. Illusion was kind of like magical illusion. And what? The boogie. Okay, that's George's. That's kind of, yeah, you could say that. That could be kind of the boogeyman. Okay. I think in the sutras, Buddha also mentioned a cairn. You know what a cairn is? Is that how it's pronounced? Cairn? Cairn? Pile of stones.
Yeah.
Cairn.
Yeah.
How do you say in Scottish?
Oh, Cairn.
Cairn, okay.
There you know. That's it. That's a cairn. So from the distance in the Scottish Highlands or the Scottish Lowlands, looks like a wee person out there. So actually, as you, yeah, little people, a wee person. As you get closer, though, as you investigate, you can see that it is not. In fact, everything, if something really does exist the way that it appears, the more that you approach it, the more you analyze, the clearer it should get. So that's another example. What's another example that's used? Maybe, but in the sutras, what else? Echo. Pardon? Cloud echo. Was it echo? Maybe. There's some other ones. The ones that the Buddha mentioned in the sutras. There are other things that are mentioned that give a sense of insubstantiality, like a bubble, a rainbow, and so forth. But those may not all be the exact examples the Buddha gave in the sutras. They have other purposes. So one of the reasonings that we have alluded to, and we talked about in some other courses, is called the king of reasonings. Now you might wonder here that why it's not called the queen of reasonings, because the wisdom gone beyond is the mother. I think maybe it's just for fairness. I don't know how the Buddha, just to be even-handed about it, because usually we associate wisdom with the female energy within our being. It doesn't mean that all males are lacking in wisdom. Only ladies have wisdom. We all have wisdom, but it's our female energy that we have to learn to embrace, that we have to learn to unify with our male energy. So the reasoning that the Buddha praised as the king of reasonings, the best of reasonings, was called what? Do you remember? Carrie, do you know? King of reasonings? Dependent origination or dependent arising. Actually, it's same word. You could translate it as, sometimes it's translated as codependent originations. It starts getting longer and longer, right? Interdependent origination, interdependent arising. You could just say dependent arising, if you like brief words. In Tibetan we say tendel. Sanskrit pratitya samudpada. So that itself, sometimes you might say, well, wait a second, we studied dependent arising before. That's not a reasoning. That's just a phenomena, right? Dependent arising phenomena are all, we could say that all impermanent phenomena are, all compounded phenomena are dependent arisings, right? In the sense that they arise in dependence on causes and conditions. That's the lowest meaning of dependent arising. We've mentioned this many times, right? There's a more subtle meaning that the Buddha mentioned, the same word when he talked about the 12 links of dependent arising, right? Same, but there, there's a slightly more subtle degree. I won't say subtle degree of subtlety, a degree of more, subtle understanding of what's meant by dependent arising. Another meaning of dependent arising is, especially in the Svatantrika Madhyamaka system, when they talk, and the Prasangika also accepts that all phenomena are dependent arisings, not just impermanent ones, because they depend upon parts. Why do they depend upon parts? Because phenomena are ultimately just imputed upon their parts. Svatantrika accepts somehow that there's some naturally existent basis, right? Remember from those of you who studied tenets. But still they accept that meaning of dependent arising is a king of reasoning that can explain emptiness. The Prasangika have the most subtle, maybe a fourth level, that means phenomena are dependent arising. All phenomena, including permanent phenomena like space and emptiness, are dependent arisings because they arise in dependence on three things, like a tripod, right? Do you remember what those three are? Do you remember, Venerable? Usually she's more bold. I think she's played out from the Medicine Buddha Festival. Don, do you remember the three?
So valid basis,
Reason to name it.
a name,
A
let's
name.
say. Mhm.
And I remember, come out with what you named.
And the consciousness that
Gives that name or concept. So none of them actually, you might think, well, the phenomena arises in dependence upon those, but the phenomena itself can't be found anywhere. Phenomena is just itself no more than a name. It's not that the phenomena is sound, but it doesn't have any kind of findable identity. It's just, phenomena just have an existence that is conceptually designated. So if you can verify to yourself that phenomena, first of all, are dependent arisings because they, let's say impermanent phenomena, because they arise in dependence on causes and conditions. Later, train your mind into a subtler meaning of dependent arisings, as in the 12 links, that each link is conditioned by the link, arises and the condition of the previous link, existence, and so forth. And then train that phenomena are arise in dependence on their parts, which are the parts of the basis, right? And then if you can start to get an insight into this fact that all phenomena are merely imputed, they're dependent arisings, and that being dependent arisings is contradictory with being truly existent. How could that be? If phenomena were truly existent, why couldn't they be? Why couldn't you have a truly existent dependent arising? What do you think, Diana?
Well, if it's being imputed, right, I mean, it depends on the imputation of your mind, so it would depend on the consciousness, but if it was truly existent, it would be existing regardless of whether there was consciousness to observe it?
I think so.
Right now, we don't really have a deep insight into this, so we're getting just an intellectual picture of it. I think that's right. If phenomena were truly existent, they would not depend only on being imputed by the consciousness. And this is what dependent arising means, according to Prasangika, the subtlest school, that phenomena they exist merely, that means only, independence on a set of parts, let's say a valid basis of designation, being labeled by a valid consciousness as something. And that label itself could be said to be, you can't find the phenomena anywhere. You can't find the phenomena within the parts, the basis of designation. The phenomena in question is not the mind that's imputing it. The phenomena is not just the concept or the sound, but sometimes it's said that. The Buddha sometimes said that, phenomena are mere names. Bodhisattva is just a name. I might have related to you several times when I had the chance to ask His Holiness once when I was in a quandary, if the table is not the parts, it's not the parts, is it? Not the collection of parts. Not any one of the parts. Can't be found in the parts or outside the parts. I didn't say it this way, but what the hell's the table? I said, what's the table? What is the table if it's not any of those? And His Holiness said, that borders, how phenomena exist conventionally, borders on the inexpressible. Like in the praise to the mother, the wisdom gone beyond. Masam jome, shera parochin, unutterable, unimaginable. You can't, it goes beyond the conceptual mind, the ordinary mind, to explain how we can understand things. So the way that phenomena do exist is merely as dependent arisings, yet they still function. There's a causality that continues over time and that has consistency. There's no lack of consistency or violation of the law of cause and effect due to emptiness, which is one of the big mistakes that people might make if they try to understand emptiness, understand it wrongly. Were you raising your hand there?
We talk about dependent arising simply from the viewpoint of causes and conditions of causation. I don't see how that level of dependent arising necessitates emptiness, demands emptiness. It seems like only once you get up to a more subtle explanation of dependent arising does it prove emptiness, so to speak.
Well, it depends on
your logic, I think. If you used the logic that Nagarjuna employs, then even if you talk about impermanent phenomena, merely saying that they arise in dependence on causes and conditions, they can't be truly existent, because something that's truly existent has an existence that's independent, that exists by itself, independent of causes and conditions also. So even that begins to loosen up the mind, although that may not be the final, most subtle meaning of emptiness that one would be apprehending. It depends on one's understanding of that. If you ever have a chance to study the Fundamental Wisdom by Nagarjuna, this great text, what's it called? Mula Prajna? Sometimes, as I think Thupten Jinpa translated it, he added more words. What does he call it? Fundamental stanzas on the middle way or wisdom. He added the two, because there's two different titles. One is just called, sometimes it's just called the Madhyamaka. That's how Chandrakirti refers to it in his commentary on in the Madhyamaka referring to Nagarjuna's root text, this one main text that he wrote. And if you have a chance to study that and all of the different reasonings that are given, it's very, very interesting, because it's not just a reasoning of like the 4-point analysis. There are other kinds of reasonings. There's a reasoning called the what's it called? The Vajra slivers. Diamond slivers. And different kinds of reasonings that are used in different contexts that make it more easy to understand. Basically, as you investigate it more and more, that's what the Bodhisattvas try to do. They try to develop a very trained mind with respect to emptiness, so whatever occurs, they can understand its emptiness. Through our, at the beginning, we have to use different kind of reasonings, because our mind becomes, some things are more opaque, or are more difficult to see with using one particular reasoning than another. So, maybe that gives a hint. So when we meditate on emptiness, if you get familiar with that, like, say, for instance, in your everyday life, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche has mentioned sometime, in how to practice emptiness in everyday life. When you go to the market, you're in the checkout lane, and you think, why am I, in what sense am I in this checkout lane paying for this food? Merely imputed Rita, let's say, Venerable Rita, is buying, or merely imputedly buying, it's not truly buying, this merely imputed food with this merely imputed money. Try to train in that way everything that you do, and start to at least get familiar with that concept. As you can start to see, because if you have some little experience with other reasonings that the I is empty, and then you arise from that meditation and you investigate, how does the I exist? How does a conventional I, how does it exist if it's empty of true existence? You see, as the Buddha said, it exists merely as a name on the conventional level. You can't find the I anywhere within the aggregates or outside. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist at all, right? That's one of the pitfalls, to think that phenomena are utterly non-existent. That's one of the dangerous things, like picking up the snake from the tail. Do you know this, right? I heard there was a bobcat. Crash Ryan told me there was a bobcat he saw on the road the other day. This is a new nickname for Pat, Crash Ryan. He had a slight altercation with the highway the other day. So if say the bobcat, if you were to grab it by the tail, maybe it could come around and bite you. Or let's say a snake, if you grab it by the tail, it can come around and bite you. But one of the pitfalls of approaching emptiness the wrong way is to think that the implication is that the I doesn't exist whatsoever. There's no I. Actually, what's being negated is what? Truly existent I, that thing that you found in your own consciousness. That in referring to the I that you're apprehending behind the I, then you see, when you rise from that, you start to see, first of all, that there is something that does exist conventionally. This has to do with the 10th paramita, the jnana paramita. We say yeshe in Tibetan, the exalted wisdom that understands the conventional existence of phenomena, not just that phenomena are empty. That's the prajna paramita, right? So first of all, I think you start to get an understanding of that, having realized the emptiness of the I. Then you see that there is still something left. There is a conventionally existent I that functions day to day, that is legitimately labeled, but it has no other existence other than that. It's a mere dependent arising. So through the Buddha's teachings skillfully about dependent arising of causes and conditions, the 12 links, and so forth, one is familiar with that concept and starts to have an understanding of that reasoning. Then in meditation, rather than using, say, the 4-point analysis, you can use the king of reasonings. You can say, this I that's appearing to me, once you found the object of negation, is not truly existent because it, the I, is a dependent arising. If you've already ascertained that if something is a dependent arising, it has to be empty of true existence, then that reasoning will function. So you have to first of all sort of approach it step by step over time. Do you have a question, Lisa?
So, during the meditation, you were saying that the emptiness doesn't exist?
Did I say that?
I thought I heard that.
So it didn't truly exist.
It doesn't truly exist.
Doesn't truly exist. Okay. If it doesn't
so
truly
it's the
exist,
same thing with the emptiness, that emptiness is also a
emptiness
Because
is
I have in my notes that emptiness exists. And then
emptiness exists. Yeah.
Yes, we made a point of pointing that out before. Okay, Venerable Soma, what do you think? Emptiness exists or does not exist? Not? Oh, not thinking la. Okay. Okay. Mark, what do you think? Emptiness exists or does not exist?
Not ultimately.
No, just if does emptiness exist or not
exist? Whoa. If emptiness did not exist, it would not be an object of knowledge, right? It could not be known. There, yeah. We make some connection from what we know from other places. Right? So emptiness does exist, but it doesn't exist the way the mind, the ignorant mind, conceives of it at first, before you've actually realized it. The mind might conceive of emptiness as being a real, truly existent phenomena, the ultimate, the best. Like, what's the best now? What's the best band now? Yeah, no, Bjork is not a band, is it? Is it a band? That's Dorji's best. No, but I don't know. What's considered to be the? I don't know. I don't listen to music. Anyway, it's the best. Ice cream. Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Okay, the best. Or Fabrizio's gelato. Okay, we have to be politically correct here. So whatever, you might think it's the best. Ultimate reality, emptiness, is the best. Therefore, it really exists. Everything else does not exist. Well, that's not the case at all. Other things do exist too. The self does exist, but not the truly existent self, the way that the ignorant mind grasps. Emptiness exists, but not the way that the ignorant mind grasps that emptiness has a true existence of its own. When the bodhisattvas meditate on emptiness along the stages, they have various kinds of emptiness. They meditate on 16 emptinesses and what else? 18, 20 emptinesses. Amongst those, one of them is called the emptiness of emptiness. That means to, for instance, we're meditating on the emptiness of the body, the emptiness of the feelings, the 5 aggregates and so forth. Remember all of these various things? The emptiness of all phenomena. Now, emptiness itself is a phenomena. It also is empty of true existence. What does that mean? When we're trying to imagine, logically understand emptiness, have some kind of sense of realization of it, probably at our level, it's just at most a correct belief, or maybe a correct assuming consciousness, right? Maybe not actual realization yet, maybe getting close to that. We'll have some mental image of emptiness. Maybe we have occasionally some experience where there's a sense of vacuity of the I that was appearing. But that sense of vacuity is an intellectual one still. It's being apprehended via a mental image of emptiness. But we may apprehend that as we think about that emptiness, even during that so-called meditation session, we may be apprehending that as, this is it. We may be thinking, this is real. That itself is grasping to true existence. There is even emptiness itself doesn't have an existence from its own side. Emptiness is something which exists, like all phenomena, merely as a concept imputed upon its parts. So if you can start to get to contemplate that, the emptiness of emptiness, you're like the bodhisattvas progressing on the path, understanding emptiness better and better, and perhaps, trying to get close to that experience, direct realization of emptiness. Let me just say one more thing. When we meditate on the clear light nature of the mind, are we realizing emptiness? What do you think, Eric? Is that remember in our meditation I say meditate on the clear light nature of the mind. Is that the ultimate nature of the mind? Good guess. He said, very cautious, Silicon Valley Chinese technician, very cautious. So what we're meditating on is just the conventional nature of the mind, the conventional clear light nature. You could talk about, there is another meaning that the ultimate nature of the mind is clear light. But here we're just meditating on the conventional clear light nature. That itself gives an intimation, of emptiness, what that experience is like. But sometimes, remember I mentioned to you, sometimes you might have a mental image of the spaciousness of the mind, and you might be kind of solidifying that. It's not the real experience. Let go of that and try to sense the spaciousness of the mind within which that mental image is actually embedded. Like, let go. Maybe that would give you a flavor of going from grasping to emptiness is true. Still, although you've got some understanding of emptiness, because you've meditated on the emptiness of the self, but you still might be grasping to that emptiness is true. Let go of that and meditate on the emptiness of the emptiness. But thinking, emptiness itself is not truly existent, as it might be still appearing to my mind, because it's a dependent arising. Okay. Did you have a question here?
Confused by the terms conventionally, ultimately, and truly. And with regard
Wait,
to
I wasn't that statement. I've been
Confused by the terms. It sounds like you've been confused by the terms conventionally, ultimately, and what was the third one? Truly. And boy, you're really confused by the terms. But you meant by the terms quote. Right. Okay. Got it. Okay. You're truly confused. Not truly confused. Okay. So.
Does emptiness exist? Yes. Does it exist conventionally? Does it exist ultimately? Does it exist truly?
Okay, let's take a little break, and you talk about this over your break, and we'll consider it when we get back. Thank you. So we're on the sex chakra. Okay, after the tail end So Sister Lisa is, yeah, I'll do some creative editing. Sister Lisa is going to Tibet, so I just wanted to mention, and to Kailash, as a matter of fact, Mount Kailash. I just want to mention, when you go on pilgrimage, try to have a courageous mind. Whatever happens, whatever obstacles come up, think of them as beneficial, as purification. Because we try to get visa, or maybe right at the last minute the Chinese police don't allow you to go around Kailash or something like that. Our gurus often say that's the rather than getting exasperated and angry that they're keeping you from getting there or something. Not that you will have any obstacles, obviously. And try to meditate while you're there, rather than just experience, I'm here. See if you could meditate. Is there something truly existent about Kailash? Is there truly existent Kailash? Maybe there's Kailash in your own body, Valid place. They say the 24 outer places are. Is Kailash one of the 24 places? Venerable? Yeah, every country has its own places, maybe. So maybe you can meditate on emptiness there. Bring your heart sutra with you. Meditate on emptiness, and then meditate on bodhicitta. Is what's his name? Steve coming also? Steve. So remind him to meditate also. He's Song Rinpoche's foster father. What do you call stepfather? I guess he's married to Song Rinpoche's mother now. Okay, so we have any questions? How are you doing? Yes.
I was wondering what Dharma Dhatu is.
Dharma Dhatu. Does it come in the sutra, or
Does it come someplace else? Dharma Dhatu. Chuying, yeah, Chuying. It can be translated as...
Sphere reality, that's what I was told. So is it the wisdom realizing emptiness? Is it the object
the Dharma Dhatu?
perceiving emptiness?
So, remember how many dhatus are there? 18 dhatus, right? So is there one called the Dharma Dhatu, or is that something completely different? Oh, there might be. Okay. Dorje, what do you think? Do you have any more, how do you say, certain answer to that? Even though it might be doubt, at least.
I have some doubt maybe in the correct direction. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's a bit precise. I would have hoped that at least you had correct belief, maybe. You could say, I have belief, I'm not sure it's correct or not, maybe. But you're in doubt. What is the Dharma Dhatu?
I thought it was one of the dhatus relating to the mental consciousness.
Mm-hmm. So what is the Dharma Dhatu? Is it the mental consciousness itself? That was the mental consciousness dhatu, right? Mental dhatu. So the same thing with the entrances or the ayatana. One of them is called the Dharma ayatana, and here one of the dhatus is called the Dharma dhatu. The Dharma ayatana and the Dharma dhatu are the objects of mental consciousness. So if you talk about each of, there are objects of eye consciousness, as there is an organ, and as there's an eye consciousness. There's 3 for each of the 6 consciousnesses, right? Their sense base, their dominant condition, let's say, the consciousness itself, and their objects, that which give rise to them. So the sense base, if you just talk about the sense base, or the base, the faculty, and the object, that set of 12 are called entrances because they give rise to, they're entrances for giving rise to the consciousnesses. Okay? If you count all 3 times 6, 18, then the objects of mental consciousness, if you talk about the 12 entrances, the objects are called dharma ayatanas. So those are phenomena entrances, and you could say phenomena sources for dharma dhatu, or phenomena spheres of phenomena. Anyway, they're objects of that consciousness. So sometimes, although dharma dhatu includes all it does. In one sense, you might say, since the mental consciousness can know all phenomena, Dharmadhatu would include all phenomena. But generally, Dharmadhatu only includes the phenomena that are exclusively realized by the mind. For instance, can the eye consciousness perceive impermanence? How about permanence? It can perceive permanence? Can perceive impermanence, but can perceive permanence? Does permanence exist? Who said no? Does permanence exist? Of course, some things are permanent. Like what? Emptiness, true cessation, space. Eye consciousness cannot perceive permanence or subtle impermanence. It can see forms and shapes that are moving, and so it sees gross things that are grossly changing, gross impermanence, but it can't realize that itself. But so there's certain phenomena that only the mental consciousness can realize. So those are generally called Dharmadhatu. But amongst those phenomena, the most important, which is often what Dharmadhatu is used for, is emptiness. So Dharmadhatu in some sutras, when the Buddha refers to Dharmadhatu, he's referring to emptiness, ultimate truth. Because that is a phenomena that's only perceived by the mental consciousness, and although there are other Dharmadhatus, that is sometimes labeled as Dharmadhatu, the Dharmadhatu. Just like in this class, the students of this class might be just like Venerable Angie, just because, #1 student or something like that, just labeled. Okay. Anyone else have a question?
As entrances, they're synonymous?
No, what we're translating
As sources is this word dhatu. So in Tibetan is kam. Also I think the same spelling for the region of Tibet called kam. But kam has different meanings. One of them is element. You could say sources. Sometimes, I don't know if they translate, what else do they translate? Sphere. Because sometimes we say chuki kam, sometimes we say chuying. When you say chuying, ying means more sphere. It's still the same, I think it's still the same Sanskrit word dharmadhatu, but kind of in the sense of being the sphere of phenomena. So in that sense, kind of more synonymous with ultimate reality. Correctly speaking, it's also a dharmadhatu. Yeah, if you talk about what is dharmadhatu, although all phenomena are objects of mental consciousness, not all phenomena are called dharmadhatu in general. General dharmadhatu are only those phenomena that only the mental consciousness can perceive. Because other phenomena, the eye can perceive, the ear, the nose, the taste, the touch. So other phenomena that the five senses cannot perceive are within the sphere of the mind, are called dharmadhatu. Okay?
I'm afraid about leaving the people.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we don't want to leave them hanging.
Ultimately, and
Yeah, whether you were conventionally confused or not.
Right. Okay.
So my belief is that truly and ultimately are synonyms, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, remember we made a distinction sometime. Although I think that's generally correct. We could say if true existence and ultimate existence, or absolute existence, however, other ones, natural existence, if they were synonymous, they would have to exist. So they're not actual synonyms, but you could say, for the sake of argument, they're hypothetically synonyms. The different schools, like the Svatantrika, besides of the Madhyamaka schools, the Prasangika is the highest, and the Svatantrika have a view which is also middle way view, but not as subtle as the Prasangika view, right? They say, although phenomena are not truly existent, they inherently exist. Depends on how you translate it. They say phenomena are rangshingi drupa. naturally existent or inherently existent. They exist from their own side. The Prasangika would say, well, wait a second, what are you talking about? You're saying the phenomena are not truly existent, but still there's some mode of existence from their own side. The Svatantrika doesn't take the position that phenomena are totally imputed. They say they're imputed, the phenomena exist as imputations, but upon a basis of designation which is naturally existent. Otherwise, if it didn't naturally exist, how could you impute anything on it? You know, if it wasn't existing from its own side as a basis of designation. So that's the kind of the sense also of the name Svatantrika comes from another argument, you know, in the history of that school. Bhava Viveka seemed to imply, to Chandrakirti anyway, that he didn't accept, he was accepting that Buddhapalita was making mistakes because Buddhapalita was not assuming that you could make statements, logical arguments that were autonomous, you know, as though the reason really did exist from its own side and so forth. Bhava Viveka's position, the Svatantrika, great Svatantrika Madhyamaka, was that the reason and all of these parts of the syllogism did exist from their own side. They weren't truly existent, but there was something that existed from its own side that could be verified amongst the various protagonists that were debating about something. And Buddhapalita and Chandrakirti did not accept that. So they, a set of later scholars labeled the Bhava Viveka position Svatantrika, or it's about, we say, Rangyupa. How do we translate it? Autonomous, or something like that, autonomy school. So, from the Prasangika point of view, hypothetically, all these things are synonymous. If something is truly existent, if something were naturally existent, it would be truly existent. It would be ultimately existent. It would be existing from its own side. But from the lower schools, they might see them as different. And just like in the Hindu schools, they see the word that we translate as manas, like in yi, the Tibetan word yi for consciousness. They see that as something different than chitta or vijnana. Those three different words have different meanings. Like in our low-rate course, we saw that in Buddhism, those three words are synonymous. So from different points of view, that's sort of like maybe making some kind of analogy, maybe that from a Prasangika point of view, certain things would be hypothetically synonymous, whereas the other people might see them as slightly different. Does that help? Okay. Venerable Rita.
Because this is something I'll never understand. When you have, like, dependent arising, you have the valid base, you have the name and the consciousness. So, you know what you just said, this is like, you know, something must be out there so that you can put a name on. This is how it appears, isn't it? It appears as if there is a basis of imputation, and then the mind comes and puts a name on it. So what comes first?
So that's the...
That would be sort of like, I think that's good, you're sort of nudging away from the Svatantrika, wanting to go to the Prasangika, but still having these kind of doubts. So, you know, a tripod, if you place a tripod, or actual tripod, not the ones that are welded together or tied or something, put 3 sticks, they all depend upon one another. So even the basis of imputation doesn't exist from its own side. The basis, it's not as though the basis of imputation is there first, and then the consciousness comes and sees it, let's say, or hears it, or tastes it, or whatever, and then imputes it. That would be kind of like Svatantrikas, there's something existing there. So even the basis of imputation, the 3 of them are simultaneous. The consciousness, the imputation, the consciousness which is imputing, the imputation, and the imputing consciousness, the imputation, and the object, the basis of designation are are coexisting and dependent upon one another. The basis of designation doesn't exist from its own side as the basis for that name. It would be great if it was, right? It would be very simple then, right? Emptiness, right? So here you have to go. I think maybe next time, the next time will be our last class. Maybe I'll bring the text by Genlam Rinpa. You know Genlam Rinpa, who passed away not so long ago. Genla wrote a couple of books on one on concentration, one on wisdom, and in there he mentions this. You find in all of the classical texts too, but it's something more accessible in that particular volume. If you have a chance to look at it, you know the one on emptiness. Do you know? No laughing. Yeah, it'd be great if it did. Huh? Yeah, maybe it will turn into that. Huh? So Genlam Rinpa mentioned in there this investigating this thing that of the three, it's none of them that are existing before one another. They all come about in dependence upon one another. So something becomes a valid basis because of the imputation, the capacity to put an imputation on it by a consciousness. It's not inherently a basis for that imputation. It is called a valid basis because it can be verified by other conventional valid cognizers as suitable to bear that name. Like, of course, you can call anything, right? You can call this Mercedes-Benz. You can call this Rolex. I think I told you before. This is a very inexpensive watch that Tara Melwani gave me once. I think her dad has big, what do you call it? Levi franchise in Singapore. So she had one of the things they sell are these watches also. It says inexpensive watch. So she gave this to me. Many people, when I wear it, they think it's like some super expensive watch. It looks like one of was it Brightland or something? Like a $10,000, $30,000 watch. And I've had people say, a monk should not be wearing such an expensive watch. I say, it's only $29. Give me a break. So this is, you could impute this. This is suitable in a sense. Everything is suitable to be imputed as anything else. We learned in Lorik, anything can be called anything. Like the moon could be called rabbit, possessor of the rabbit, and remember all of these kind of poetic names because anything can be imputed as anything else. But those, to be a valid basis of that name, it has to be verified by other valid cognizers of other people who have, within the human realms, to say if you're talking about human imputations, who have the collective karma of you, and that can verify that that's a valid basis from that conventional point of view. But doesn't exist from its own side as a basis of imputation. So that also, I think, is coming to some kind of subtle point, like the question Lisa asked about emptiness of emptiness. Even emptiness itself, although it might seem to be some real, everything else is kind of just like an illusion, but emptiness, that's it. That's also, empty of true existence. The special thing about emptiness is that it's called an ultimate truth. It's not called an absolute, we don't, you could translate it as absolute truth, but we usually don't. We say, Dondam Demba, Parama Satya, ultimate truth. So this is Don's name, Dondam. Remember Don? So we're changing his name now from Don to Dun, which means meaning, meaningful, whatever. Not dump, not duh or dumb or anything. It's Don, Dun. Dundam. Dundam means holy truth or holy object, and Satya means truth. So holy object truth or ultimate truth, Parama Satya. So although emptiness is an ultimate truth, it's still itself not truly existent. So what's the sense of calling it an ultimate truth? Do you remember? Why is emptiness called ultimate truth? If it's itself is empty, you'd think ultimate truth, that's the ultimate. Because it's impermanent? Because it's permanent. A lot of things are permanent. They're not ultimate truths.
It
Not
appears
to
to
be.
really exist.
Oh, because it exists.
It appears not to be an ultimate truth.
Not to be existing.
It's coming close. Venerable, I think, had it. What did you say?
It appears the way it exists.
Its mode of appearance and its mode of existence are the same, that are complementary. Every other phenomena other than emptiness, the mode of appearance is one of true existence, like all conventional phenomena, but their mode of existence, the mode of appearance is true existence, but the mode of existence is absence or emptiness of true existence. Only emptiness itself is actually true. That it's, when you actually perceive it correctly, not incorrectly, conceiving it to be truly existent, because this would answer your question, Lisa. If you were to think maybe emptiness, even if it did exist, it must truly exist. If one had that thought, then it wouldn't be really a truth. It wouldn't bear the meaning that Venerable Rita is reminding us of ultimate truth. Ultimate truths are called truths. They're real truths because their mode of appearance is in accord with their mode of existence. They really are the way that they appear. What you see is what you get. Like, what is that, WYSIWYG or something? WYSIWYG, like on the computers, You know that one? On the computer, they say these fonts are what you see is what you get. What you see on the screen of the computer is what you get when you print them out. That's the origin of it. So, conventional phenomena from the Buddha's explanations are not really truths, although we call them conventional truths. All phenomena that exist are either ultimate truths or conventional truths, right? Ultimate truths are exhausted by emptiness. Anything that's an ultimate truth is emptiness. Anything which is a conventional truth is not emptiness, and it's not really truth. It's only called truth for an obscuring mind. Or I've joked many times, as Jeffrey Hopkins used to say, truth for a jerk. We say kunsop tempa, or what's the Sanskrit? Samitya? Samitya sattva? I can't remember. It means there are three different ways that can be interpreted. Conventional, relative, or truth for an obscuring mind, truth for a jerk, truth for ignorance. Phenomena, these phenomena that we experience, ordinary conventional truths, are only true conventionally for the deluded mind. They're not true for the mind that perceives the ultimate reality. So they're called truth for an obscuring mind. Kunsop. Kunsop refers to the subjective mind that's perceiving them. Okay? This is question and answer day. We just have a little bit more to finish in the sutra, so it's okay. Yeah.
We'll finish.
Well, I might need help in asking the questions, because I don't know how
If you
to-
need help in answering the question, asking the question, can I have help in answering it?
Please bring the telephone. I'm going to call up Lama Zopa, Dalai Lama.
Reading through my notes, and I was reading about the 6 paramitas, and you had said that I think you had said this right somewhere. The first 5 are method, and then the 6th is wisdom. And then I was reading about the Hinayana and Mahayana views of wisdom, and you had said the main differentiation of the two is not the wisdom, it's the method.
The main difference between the interpretation of wisdom?
I don't know.
Okay, so there's your discussion. So,
With the first part, I believe this is what I would have said, that of the 6 perfections, the first 5 are method, that fall on the method side, because they deal with the conventional, and the 6th, only the 6th, the prajnaparamita, is wisdom, that is between method and wisdom. Even though amongst methods are things that know conventional truths and know impermanence and so forth, those are not considered to be the prajnaparamita. Prajnaparamita doesn't involve itself with just knowing conventional truths, it knows the ultimate truth. Actually, the last 4 paramitas also are included in the 6th paramita, so they're all included in that also. So if you differentiate between the Mahayana and the Hinayana, so remember when we said the mother, the wisdom that realizes emptiness, is the mother of the Buddhas of the 3 times. It says in our praise that Rahula wrote for his mother, right? The mother of the Buddhas of the 3 times. It's also, in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, is also called the mother of the hearers and solitary realizers in the Bodhisattvas, besides the Buddhas. It's a mother of all. So, the example that we gave before, sort of from Indian what do you call it? Social history, I guess, I don't know what you call it. In India, a child that was born, their caste was determined by their father's lineage. So if a mother successively had various husbands, or maybe concurrently, I don't know, successively, like the mother of Asanga and Vasubandhu, supposedly they had different fathers. The mother was the same, but the fathers were different. So the sons would successively, or the children would successively be of different lineages according to the father. One might be a Brahmin, one might be of the warrior caste or whatever, right? According to the father's lineage. So when we differentiate between wisdom and method, the male and female, the wisdom is like the mother that gives birth to all of them, but the particular lineages, whether you're a Shravaka, a Pratika Buddha, or a Bodhisattva, depends on your method, whether it be the method of renunciation or the method of bodhicitta. But the thing, so that the wisdom doesn't differentiate them. From the Prasangika point of view, they all realize emptiness. From the lower school's point of view, there is a difference, right? Do you remember, Mark? That's all you're going to say, right? Vaguely, you remember. So, basically, like say from the Chittamatra or the Svatantrika point of view, what do the hearers realize emptiness of phenomena? What do they realize? Yeah, it's you. I'm not asking you.
An emptiness of the self, or a selflessness.
Yeah, selflessness, right, of persons.
So the subtle selflessness of persons, which is the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person. And according to, let's say, the Svatantrikas, what do the Pratika Buddhas realize? You remember? This is the Yogacara Svatantrikas. They realize they have from when the great commentary, the Prajnaparamita by Haribhadra. Actually, you say commentary of the Prajnaparamita is the Abhisamayalankara by Maitreya, but one commentary to that by Haribhadra from the Svatantrika, Yogacara Svatantrika point of view. He said the hearers realize subtle selflessness of persons. The Pratika Buddhas mainly meditate on and realize what? The emptiness of duality, sort of the Chittamatra view that form and form realizing consciousness are empty of being different substances. Do you remember that terminology? That the objects of consciousness and the consciousness are empty of the apparent duality between them. So they sometimes calling that non-duality. It's not the non-duality of the Tantra or Prasangika school. And the Bodhisattvas realize the emptiness of true existence. So they have 3 different realizations according to the Svatantrika. But according to the Prasangika, at least as explained by Chandrakirti and Lama Tsongkhapa, some of the other schools say that that's not what is meant, but this is Lama Tsongkhapa is very clear, and Chandrakirti seems very clear that the hearers, the solitary realizers, and the Bodhisattvas all realize emptiness of true existence. Even though in the scriptures, the Hinayana scriptures, it doesn't how do you say, obviously, manifestly talk about emptiness of true existence in any detailed way, some allusions to it. It seems that their realization of selflessness leads them to that, and perhaps in the oral tradition, there was this understanding to lead one to emptiness of true existence. But there's no way that one could really become an arhat, a Shravaka arhat or a Pratika Buddha arhat, attain nirvana, unless one realized emptiness. Same as the bodhisattvas. So it's not, from the Prajnagiga point of view, it's not wisdom that differentiates the Hinayana from the Mahayana. So the lower schools might say there is a difference of wisdom and method. Prajnagiga says the wisdom's the same. Of course, the bodhisattvas do have a deeper amount of logical reasonings. That's what differentiates them, because a bodhisattva remaining within cyclic existence for 3 countless great eons has to have this incredible arsenal of ways of meditating on emptiness. The main thing that differentiates the Mahayana and Hinayana is the wisdom, is the method of, they have, in addition to renunciation, they have bodhicitta, which the Hinayana arhats do not have. Hinayana arhats have, or Hinayana practitioners on the Shravaka path, Pratika Buddha path, until arhatship and beyond, do they have bodhicitta, Dorji? Pratika Buddha? Yeah, Eric wants to turn the camera on you. Ah, okay. You spaced out. Okay, you'll turn the camera on yourself? Okay. Okay. Do the Hinayana, let's say the Shravaka practitioners on the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, no more learning, and, as they become arhats, do they have bodhicitta?
I'm not sure, but I don't think so.
Oh, at least we got to see your beautiful face.
You're not sure.
I don't think
You're not sure that you're not sure that you don't know, or what do we say?
so. I'm sure that I don't know.
You're sure that you don't know, but I thought you said you weren't sure.
I might know.
Venerable Rita, can you put a closure on this? Do the Hinayana practitioners have bodhicitta?
No.
They don't have probably even an inkling of bodhicitta. I mean, they might have heard about it, and they might even admire the bodhisattvas. In some of the Mahayana sutras, the Hinayana Shravakas are talking about, their similitude of being like bodhisattvas, but they're not really bodhisattvas because they don't have this mind. The mind of bodhicitta, along with the wisdom of emptiness, has the capacity to eliminate the subtle obstructions to omniscience. The wisdom of emptiness alone, with renunciation, has only the capacity to eliminate what? Obstructions to omniscience? No. We'd say the subtle obstructions to omniscience are, we saw shedip. What's the other one's called? Nyondip, or obstructions to liberation also, right? So the wisdom alone with renunciation has the capacity to eliminate all the afflictions from our mind, the so-called delusions, ignorance, and attachment, all completely gone, along with their seeds, so they'll never rise again. It's not possible when one attains arhatship that one can fall from that. From a Prajnagiga point of view, such a situation is impossible. If one attains arhatship, one will not fall from that. One has passed beyond sorrow, which is the Tibetan etymology of the word nirvana, or the Sanskrit, from the Sanskrit sutras that the Tibetans embrace. That's the etymology of nirvana, passing the state passed beyond sorrow. So completely ceased of the Four Noble Truths, there's true cessation. But they haven't achieved total omniscience. They've only achieved elimination of the obstructions to liberation, right? Or also called the afflicted obstructions. Still in their mind streams are these subtle stains, like the smell of the camphor in the woolen. You keep your woolens, right? Or who keeps garlic in a box? That's not a good example. What else do people have? Perfume, like in your maybe in your sock drawer. Durian, okay, that's an extreme example. It's a fruit in Asia that the new Esplanade in Singapore looks like a big durian. She hasn't seen it yet. She'll love that. So say for instance in your shirts or something you keep a little bag of what's it called, lavender, in lavender flowers in a little bag. Do you ever do that? Leave a fragrance, some sachet of some kind. So even when you take out that bag, say it's sat in the drawer for many, 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 many weeks, maybe a couple of years, and you take it out, still, even though there's not one little, you vacuum in there, you get all of that out, still, maybe that odor, that fragrance has permeated the wood, so it can't, it's like a stain, even though you've gotten out the smell. So once the delusions are eliminated from the mind through meditating on emptiness, it's in the Hinayana path, there can still be, even the delusions and their seeds, the sabon we say, so that those things will never rise again, even though theirs eliminated, there's still a stain in the mind that is the result of them having been present in the mind for beginningless time. And that is one of that's what we might call the obstructions to omniscience. There are other kinds of obstructions to omniscience, but so the Hinayana Arhats are not able to eliminate that stain from the mind. And that stain of mind has various manifestations, those stains of mind. For instance, the inability to see the two levels of truth simultaneously as the Buddha can. To know all phenomena simultaneously, not just the two levels of truth, but even all conventional phenomena, with one instant of mind knowing all phenomena, is in the Hinayana, not even, usually in the Hinayana scriptures, they won't even accept that Buddha can do that, omniscient mind. They don't believe that Buddha's omniscient mind has that capacity. To know the subtle qualities of the Buddha's mind and so forth, to spontaneously work for sentient beings. All those are qualities of the Buddha's mind that are obscured by this subtle obstruction to omniscience. The only way to get rid of that from the mind is by the cooperative meditation with emptiness still, but now with the added factor of bodhicitta, which the bodhisattvas had from the beginning of the path. Meditating with an altruistic intention. The reason you're meditating is not, remember the song, we got to get out of this, I got to get out of this place? Or is it we got to get out of this place? That's more Mahayana. Sort of the Hinayana version is, I got to get out of this place. Sort of like, I've got to get out of samsara. Mahayana version, maybe they were the Mahayanas, yeah? We've got to get out of this place if it's the last thing we ever do. So that's kind of the Mahayana point of view. So with that particular motivation, not working for one's own welfare alone, but for the welfare of all sentient beings, still working for one's own conventional welfare, because without yourself becoming Buddha, you can't help others, still having the aim of attaining enlightenment for the welfare of sentient beings. When I was in Tokyo recently, I mentioned this verse. I probably mentioned to you before, the definition of bodhicitta. Do you remember in the Abhisamayalankara? Did anyone memorize? Semke pani shendon chir, yangdak zukbe jangchub de. Mind generation, which is the name in the Prajnaparamita for conventional bodhicitta, generation of the mind toward enlightenment. You know this verse, Venerable? From Semke pani, so ni just means is. Semke pa means the mind generation is to wish, de, the last word, for complete, perfect enlightenment for the welfare, the dön, or the dan, of others. So there's two factors. It's not just to wish total enlightenment, that's not bodhicitta. Because maybe the Hinayana Arhats might have liked to be Buddha also, but not necessarily for the welfare of others. So that kind of presupposes that the mind has been trained in compassion, not just in ordinary compassion that the Hinayana Arhats have, or the Hinayana hearers and solitary realizers along the path, they have compassion. They even have what they call great compassion, but not what the Mahayana calls great compassion. They say, your great compassion is not real great compassion. The Hinayana great compassion can mean great in the sense of having compassion for all suffering, for all sentient beings. gosh, I wish they didn't have it. You know, but leaving it there, not thinking, I will get rid of it. Mahayana great compassion means taking the responsibility. That's really great compassion, taking the responsibility yourself when you see something happening, for you to, even if it hurts yourself, wanting to alleviate the suffering of others. So, from the highest school Prasangika point of view, the Hinayana and the Mahayana are not differentiated by their wisdom. They both realize the emptiness of all phenomena. They are differentiated by the method. Hinayana, main method, is renunciation, spontaneous renunciation. I want to get out of this place. Mahayana, bodhicitta, we got to get out of this place. I've got to attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Just a little peek. That was good. I mean,
Okay.
that answered part.
Okay.
But
I needed
guess-
that? You have to say?
No.
Thank you, I needed that.
Thank you, I needed that. The other part is, like Venerable Kirti Senchip Rinpoche talks about how we need to work on method and wisdom at the same time.
Mhm.
And yet I still have this idea that generosity, ethics, patience, effort lead to wisdom. So I'm still having this confusion around, they go
They go
simultaneously,
hand in hand, yeah. Do it again, that's right.
But
Do it
then
again,
the
do it again,
wisdom-
do it again.
They-
That's right.
No, I went like this.
Oh, yeah, no, but here, hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
Hand in hand. So you have to practice, on the Bodhisattva path. Didn't we talk about this the other day? I was talking about it in Tokyo, maybe. We have to practice the method side, let's say generosity. The first of the 6 perfections, perfection of charity or generosity. When we practice that, the real perfection of generosity takes place when it's conjoined also with a wisdom that understands emptiness, the emptiness of the 3 spheres, the agent of the action. Let's say myself as the agent of charity or generosity. I am empty of true existence. The recipient of the charity is empty of true existence. The action of generosity is empty of true existence. Understanding that is a way to practice the union of the perfection of wisdom with the perfection of charity. Usually when we talk about the perfection of charity, the special practice of perfection of charity only takes place on the first bhumi. Where's the first bhumi? Path of accumulation? Meditation, first bhumi. Path of seeing, right? As soon as you realize emptiness, you're on the first bhumi. Okay? There can be part of the path of meditation on the first bhumi, perhaps. Usually, as soon as you start to attain the antidotes to the according to different tenets, there might be. Yeah. According to Svatantrika, they have a different scheme in trying to divide up the bhumis according to different, like 9 levels of things to be eliminated. The gross, the medium, and the small, and each of those divided into gross, medium, and small. So the gross of the gross, the medium of the gross, the small of the gross. So they have 9 levels that have to be divided over on the path of meditation. So they divide up the bhumis a little bit arbitrarily from Prasangika point of view. But let's say the first bhumi, you have to, on the first bhumi, you've realized emptiness. So it's said that on the first bhumi you have a special practice of the perfection of charity. You may have had something called perfection of charity before. Actual perfection of charity is actually only in the Buddha's mind, but you can call this special practice of perfection of charity. But it's conjoined with the wisdom of emptiness. In fact, all of the 6 perfections should be practiced together. You should have a charity of charity, a morality of charity, a patience of charity, and so forth. Charity of charity, I remember Geshe Darge used to say, one way you can think is, if someone else has difficulty in giving, you can say something like this. You can say, look, I've got this money, but my leg hurts. I want to give to that beggar over there. Can you please go put it in their hand with reverence, And someone who, so you give it to me because it's a completely stingy person. And I have to go over and, even though I want to keep it for myself, because I have to follow. Maybe Frank gives me the money and says, make these offerings. Okay, here, take this. So that might be an example of the charity of charity. Person making charity in order for out of generosity. So you can practice all of the perfections. You have to practice all of the perfections in unison like that. So when Kirti Sanchar Rinpoche says we have to find a way of unifying, that also in Tantra there's a more subtle way of unifying the method and wisdom. Always in the Mahayana, we try to get to the end state, like the Buddha state is when method and wisdom are totally unified, when you have simultaneous perception of the two levels of truth, conventional truth and ultimate truth. So that would mean like a unification of method and wisdom. And we lead up to that by alternating between the two, because in an ordinary person's mind, until Buddhahood, there's no way to have a direct realization of the two levels of truth, with one mind to perceive the two levels of truth directly, with one mind, simultaneously. So we can alternate, and we can have a remembering consciousness. We can have a direct perception of our giving, and a remembering consciousness of emptiness, and then the bodhisattvas might enter into meditative equipoise and rise from that, and enter into meditative equipoise and emptiness and rise from that in very short instants of time, but they won't have a total, the most subtle kind of meaning of unification of method and wisdom. In Tantra, it's possible to have total unification by practicing, deity yoga and so forth. So that could be what Rinpoche was also alluding to. So we talk about trying to develop that unification of method and wisdom. You need both, like the Chandrakirti said, I think quoting from the sutras, like a bird cannot take off and soar into the sky with only one wing. We need both method and wisdom. And then when you talk about in more fine detail, you talk about a unification of them. But that sounds more like the tantric. When you talk about unification of method and wisdom, sounds more like the actual unification with one mind, sort of the tantric side. Okay. So, no more questions. So we can just let's look at the text just a little bit further. So we've gotten to the end, near the end. So we've talked about the mantra, Tadyata Om Gate, or Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisattva. Sometime Om in the tantric sadhanas, supposed tantric sadhanas that are associated with it. Then, so I think we mentioned last time, so Avalokiteshvara, the last thing that he is purported to say after the mantra is, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Detar, like we had today, such, in such a way, maybe we could say. Then the Bhagavan, the Lord, the, Chomdende, the endowed transcendent destroyer, arose from that concentration. What concentration? Do you know? No, okay. Profound perception, good. Okay. So the Buddha was silent all this time, right? But still we said that this is still considered a sutra, still considered to be the Buddha's words because it was inspired by Buddha's presence, because it's instigated and inspired in that way. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. When Lama Zopa Rinpoche saw this translation sometime, he said, there's only 2 well-saids here. There should be 3. In the Tibetan text, it looks like what does it say? Saying, well said. Here, what I've translated as what looks like to the Tibetans as well said, it said, commended the Bodhisattva. So in Tibetan and in Sanskrit, there's a word that has sort of like the phrase well said in it, but it's saying well said. So that's, in English, we would put that as commended, you know. So it's not as though the Buddha said, well said 3 times. Not that it makes much difference where they said 1, 2, or 3 times. You said, whoa, this is ridiculous. We're arguing about how many times the Buddha said well said. But just sometimes you might see, some translations might say, well said 3 times, but it's one of the well saids has a verb along with it, which is implying that's, you know, when you're saying a commendation, when you're commending someone, you're saying this kind of well saying. Can you say? Can I say that? Well saying, commending.
Well said, well said.
Yeah, that he had spoken well said. But yeah, so he's spoken well. So that's, here we're translating as commended. He commended the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, you know what the Sanskrit is? Or what they say in, what do they say in Singapore, Malaysia, when someone finishes a discourse? Do you know, Venerable? Sadhu, sadhu, right? Well said, well said. They usually don't say, do they say 3 times? Pardon? 3 times? I couldn't tell. 3. Okay. So sometimes you hear that after discourses when the audience wants to show appreciation to the Sangha member or whoever has given the talk, they say sadhu, sadhu. So this is what the Buddha said. Son of the lineage. So again, remember what son of the lineage means here? What does son of the lineage mean? Theo, I haven't called on you tonight. You're sort of made yourself invisible there very, very cleverly. What does son of the lineage mean in this context?
The conqueror, child of the conqueror.
Son of the lineage. Does that mean he's a bodhisattva or she's a bodhisattva? What lineage? Because sometimes people say it just means son of. Some people translate it as son of good family. Have you seen that translated sometime? Son of good family. Was it Gotra Putra? Something like that. So it means here the lineage or family is not talking about just like, oh, you're from a good family, or this is like, you know, you're a high person or something. It's talking about an individual who's a member of the Mahayana lineage. So someone who's entered into the lineage is a bodhisattva. Someone who's awakened. Do you remember we talked before? What is the meaning of having awakened the Mahayana lineage? If you've awakened the Mahayana lineage, have you entered the Mahayana lineage? Are you a son or daughter of the lineage? Yep.
Bodhicitta?
If you've awakened the lineage. Okay. That's not what my understanding is. Do you know, Venerable? Awakening the lineage means when you develop great compassion. If a person has not yet developed great compassion, and at the moment they develop great compassion, have they at that moment developed bodhicitta? If you have great compassion, you have bodhicitta at that moment? When you have great compassion, do you have bodhicitta at that moment? There's no pervasion. So I said let's say the first newly generating great compassion for the first time, you could say there is a pervasion. They don't have bodhicitta because it has to be, that's one of the causes of bodhicitta. Like in the causes and results of bodhicitta, great compassion is a cause of what laksam, what do we call exceptional thought or universal motivation, universal intention, and then bodhicitta can arise from that. So great compassion, again, the Hinayana Arhats have a kind of great compassion. Here it's a thought, I must eliminate the suffering alone. But that thought does not necessarily think, in order to eliminate the suffering, I must attain enlightenment. That comes as a result of great compassion, right? No? You haven't heard it before? Do Buddhists have great compassion? Buddhists have great compassion, I believe. It's like Mona Lisa would smile. I said, what was the intention of that question? Suddenly, no, Buddhists have great compassion. The Bodhisattvas necessarily have great compassion, don't they? Because that's a cause of bodhicitta, and if you're a bodhisattva, you necessarily have bodhicitta. But when you first develop great compassion, Mahayana great compassion, to think that I must eliminate the suffering of sentient beings, all the suffering of all sentient beings. At that point, one has awakened the Mahayana lineage. One has not actually entered into the Mahayana lineage because one has not yet generated bodhicitta at that point, right? So here's the son of the lineage, because referring to a man. This means, this is the same as saying a bodhisattva, referring to them as a bodhisattva. So would you refer to Shariputra as son of the lineage? Probably not. I don't think they might have used that term in a different sense, because even in everyday terminology in India at that time, someone in good standing, you'd say something similar to son of the lineage, but you'd be meaning someone of good family, you of good race or something like that. Here, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that, just as you have said. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, just as you have shown. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. So let's end here and dedicate our merit and try to do it in a unification. We don't have a one mind that can meditate on the two levels of truth at once. So what we do is we make conventional dedication, and then we seal that in the emptiness of the three spheres, right? Like the Bodhisattvas perform all of their actions. So think of the merits that you've created. Even though you already have an intimation of emptiness, you're not necessarily calling that to mind right yet, thinking, may these merits, which will ripen within cyclic existence and something pleasurable that I've created upon my own continuum, may they ripen in such a way that they don't bring a result just once. If you dedicate it to something further along the path, that can also have an exhaustion. So you try to dedicate it to the greatest goal, our own enlightenment for the welfare of sentient beings, or let's say that the ultimate happiness of all sentient beings. Due to these merits, may the bodhicitta, which has not yet arisen in my own and others' minds, may it arise, and may those sprouts of bodhicitta that have arisen, even the smallest, may they not decline, may they not be degenerated in any way, but those that have begun, may they grow even larger and larger due to these merits. And although there's another verse similar to this for the wisdom, you can think this bodhicitta, you can think, may the two bodhicittas, conventional bodhicitta, the ultimate bodhicitta. And then, as though letting go of that, seeing it as insubstantial, meditate on the emptiness of the merits, the goals dedicated to, and the active dedication. All of them, just as the aggregates, the self, the entrances, the dhatus,
exalted wisdom, the Four Truths, all of them are empty of true existence. Yet they still function. So if you meditate on the emptiness of the three things, the self, the object dedicated to, the goals dedicated to, and the act of dedication, this covers those elements involved in the act of dedication, so that the act of dedication is sealed in emptiness.